I'm going to start this off by saying it is 1 a.m. and this is the first time I've figured out how to use DaVinci, OBS, all these funny, fancy software computer thingies that I have never known how to do. I am a goddamn caveman who has learned how to make videos for you. Please enjoy. I already did the script read earlier on this morning, and I only did the introduction, so it's only like 1 minute or two, maybe possibly three. And I'm going to just cut into that. And in the meantime, you're going to get this beautiful footage of me doing the hula dance back here. Assalamu alaikum. It's daytime. Pretty much everything I recorded last night was that I couldn't use any of that footage. I might add the hula dancing at the end of the video if you guys want to see that, but we're just gonna get into it. I'm gonna skip the introduction here. I probably already have like 3 minutes of bullshit talking before this part anyway, so the Foreign Registration Act was a bill that was brought to the American House of Representatives by politician John W. McCormick in 1937, July 28th to be specific. And he served throughout all of World War I, advancing his way from private to sergeant major, which, right after reaching the rank of sergeant major, the Armistice of the 11th of November, which was the bill that kind of ended all of the fighting of World War I, was signed, which now he had really nothing left to do inside of the military. This bill was signed in 1918, but supposedly our boy John was just so on his shit, unlike all of you. A year before the war ended, he was already back in Massachusetts doing local speeches for other campaigns, as in other local Democratic politicians there wanting to get elected, so they'd have, like, you know how Beyonce might bring on like a young artist beforehand on her set. I guess he was the young artist on these other politicians' set. I would be very mad at this if I was the politician who just brought him on, but they ended up electing, like, the people of Massachusetts chose to elect John W. McCormick as one of the sitting members of the Massachusetts Constitutional Convention, which is, I'm assuming, just a seat on the House of Representatives. He ends up getting this spot in 1917, and then 20 years later from now, he is a seasoned politician. You can say he also has experience in the war, so he knows a bit about foreign relations and the way that other countries can get affected by other countries' involvement in their politics. So what I am going about here, taking my sweet time trying to get this video to 10 minutes explaining, is the fact that he was a smart man. He saw that in 1937 on the horizons were Nazis and the commies. So because of his hatred of those people and also his intelligence from seeing in World War I that when other countries, the cousin kings of Europe, when one of them dies, they have to spin the block and help each other. He didn't want communists or Nazis to be able to have the ability to have politicians here in America that were on the side or at least shared the same belief as those people. So unlike our politicians who are reactive, our boy John, who I think is quite a swell guy, he was preemptive. He took measures to stop this from happening. So I'm going to read to you guys word for word what this bill, the Foreign Registration Act, actually does. I knew I wasn't dumb. I'm realizing now I haven't read, like, out loud in a long time, so this is gonna sound like shit. The Foreign Registration Act is a United States law that imposes public disclosure obligations on persons representing foreign interests. It requires foreign agents defined as individuals or entities engaged in domestic lobbying or advocating for foreign governments, organizations, or persons, foreign principals, to register with the Department of Justice and disclose their relationships, activities, and related financial compensations. I realize I probably look like I was struggling very hard to read that, so I'm gonna Alright, I'm happy to tell you from here we can start speaking about the main star of the show, which is JFK. And more importantly, you might have noticed so far I haven't spoken about JFK, like, at all. And that's because I want to make a disclaimer here. If I say anything that makes me a threat to the government, I think we should overthrow the government. But what the actual thing is that, so from here on out, I promise everything that I'm saying to you is not a lie. I will keep all of my journalistic integrity that I 100% have as a person who is not a journalist. And then also on top of that, I will hopefully stick to the script if I can fucking have a brain for once. So let's get this going by talking about JFK, his relationship with Palestine, and AIPAC, and AIPAC's predecessor, the AZC, the American Zionist Committee. JFK, when he was 22 years old, took a trip to Palestine, and during that trip, I can only assume after reading the letter that he sent back to his father that he spent a lot of time with the Palestinians, and he is a logical based bro Chad. Simply, that's all I gotta say. Keep in mind, his trip to Palestine takes place in 1939, only a year after the Farah? I don't really know how to make a nickname for the Foreign Agents Registration Act, but I think the Farah, that's quite fitting. So this is only a year after that comes to fruition. So we can kind of see that at this time, there are some things that are happening within the American government that are shifting. So this must have played an effect on John F. Kennedy's view of Palestine as a whole, because as he states in the letter to his father, he says that the terms of the Mahmoud letter guaranteeing an independent Arab state were quite vague, and the territory delineations were equally as vague. As well as him saying that, he also says that the Balfour declarations were indefinite. So this shows a very clear stance on how JFK views Palestine and how he will view in the future America treating Palestine. So I promised to stay to the script, but I kind of lied. I was reading a document here that is called the Nuclear Proliferation International History Project, and it was a document declassified by the National Security Archive. Big lot of words, but I'm going to read you a short passage of it so you can get the gist of the document, and then I'm going to ramble. Kennedy pressured the government of Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion to prevent a military nuclear program, particularly after a staged, managed tour of the Dimona facility for the U.S. government scientists in 1961 and 1962 raised suspicions within the U.S. intelligence that Israel might be concealing its underlying nuclear aims, as well as the document saying State Department officials tried to follow up President Kennedy's interest in having scientists from neutral nations such as Sweden visit the Dimona plant. The British also favored such ideas, but they sought the U.S. pressure to induce the Israelis to accept inspections, visits from the International Atomic Energy Agency. The Kennedy administration believed that I'm just going to put that up on screen, inspections of Dimona were a valid long-term goal, but recognized that a second visit by U.S. scientists was necessary if a visit by neutrals could not be arranged. So, without me getting into the word jargon of the last document, the Eisenhower administration advised JFK on his way into office, I'm assuming either the same month he got in, which is January 1961, or a few months prior, that there is a secret nuclear plant in Dimona, Israel. And the reason that they would even care to mention this to the upcoming president is because at this time, the funding of the Soviets and America dumping weapons into the Middle East, one side fueling the Arabs, one side wanting to fuel the Israelis. So although America wants to have a strong ally in Israel and make sure that they can impose the might of America at any point by the push of a button if they want to, they do not want to cause a regional war. And that's why, although JFK is the first president to start the sale of advanced missiles to Israel, which is a Hawk anti-aircraft missile, that is very different comparative to Lyndon B. Johnson, who we will speak about later. But only 4 months later, after JFK comes into office on January 16th, probably, 1961, he launches the investigation on the Dimona plant, and it takes a lot of haggling with the Israelis to even be able to inspect the site. And after the first inspection, they come to the conclusion Israel is allowed to keep the power plant as long as it is just a power plant and not being used for anything else. That is why they were pressuring them so hard into having those inspections by That thing. I forgot the name. But if it's a foreign country investigating Israel and this power plant, they are hoping that it will be held to a higher standard, and they do not want to be the ones to do it. That's why they were asking Sweden and all these other countries, because American president coming to Israel is not a very good look to the rest of the Middle East when Israel just kind of murked one of your guys. He launches his first investigation only 4 months after he comes into office, which the thought of that must have shook every Israeli and Zionist in the American government in their boots. Because once he launches this second investigation a year later in June 1962, whatever he sees there, he does not like, because he comes back to America and sets his brother Robert F. Kennedy out to oversee the registration of the AZC, the American Zionist Committee, as a foreign agent using the Foreign Registration Act. That's why I spent that long explaining what it was. Not because I wanted to get the video to 10 minutes. That must have been the scariest thing all of the Israelis has ever heard, because now that they are registered as a foreign agent, they are not considered a part of the American government. They cannot hide where their money is going. And if it's going to certain politicians under certain bills for certain things, the public will know that now. Yeah, I didn't explicitly say it, but he died a year later. So I understand there is a very big conspiracy, not so much a conspiracy, I guess, that it was the CIA who did it because they wanted to be pro-war and Lyndon B. Johnson was pro-war. Well, I'm here to tell you, Lyndon B. Johnson is also the biggest pro-Israel president we have ever had since Harriet S. Truman, who was the same president who okayed the 1947 UN partition of Palestine, which caused a year later Israel to be formed. If you don't believe me that LBJ is the most pro-Israel president we've ever had, I really hope that article that came out in 2024 would prove my point. But I'm going to read you his 1967 address to the State Department for his 5 principles for peace in the Middle East, which, god damn, it is fucking retarded to read this. After making this video and doing all the research that I have, just let me read them for you. All nations in the region have the right to live in peace. Justice for all refugees. Preservation of maritime rights, the Suez Canal. An end to the Middle East arms race. And a need for recognizable borders for the 5th one. I'm just going to lay this out for you. How the fuck do you expect to end the Middle East arms race when you are the one dumping money into Israel, the one who is beating the living dog shit out of Palestine at that time, and giving the rest of the Middle East, Egypt as well, and all these other countries, reason to side with Russia, to take the Russian money and the missiles? Before I go, I would like to leave you guys with one bit of information. Robert F. Kennedy, who is JFK's brother, was assassinated in June 6th, 1968 by a Jordanian man who is originally a Palestinian man, but he had lost his citizenship and probably his home in Palestine because of one of the wars that were going on there. This man, Sarah, was in Los Angeles at the same time and supposedly killed RFK because of his very verbal support of Israel at the time, which is a possible situation that he did that if you believe all Arabs are just barbarous people who will do anything once you say something to make them mad. But I think what is much more plausible here is that Robert F. Kennedy saw that his brother was assassinated by a group of people for not aligning with their political beliefs. So Robert F. Kennedy's support of Israel was much more of a facade to ensure his time as a politician until he could become president and actually do things against these people. But what I think happened was Israel, or the Zionists inside of our government, came to Sarah and said, hey man, we will give you your home back in Palestine and you and your family can all return there. All you have to do is kill this politician who's in the town you're already in at the same time. So all you have to do is take the fall and we'll let your family go back. And I feel like that is a much, much more plausible situation than just him getting mad at a bunch of words. And with that, I would like to say, thank you for watching. If you've made it here to the end, I love you very much. Be sure to do the normal YouTube like and subscribe things. After rewatching this video, see I have a lot of areas I could improve on, so if you think there is anything that I could do better, maybe editing or coherentness, stick to the script, certain things, please comment them down below. And thank you for watching. Bye-bye.